Hello and welcome to our webinar, ProsperOpps for Partners, Delivering Cost Optimization Services at Scale. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be published to our website later this week. All attendees will receive an email once it's live and available to watch. We're going to pause here for a moment just to allow folks who just joined to settle in, and then we'll get started. Your hosts today will include Chris Cochran, co-founder and CEO of ProsperOpps, and Stephen Hayes, our head of sales. We're also joined by a special guest, David Phillips, CEO of Tecflair. During our webinar, we'll discuss the cost optimization opportunity and why there's never been a better time to offer AWS cost optimization services. You'll learn about the ProsperOpps platform and how it benefits our partners. We'll hear a live case study from our partner Tecflair about their success with ProsperOpps. And you'll learn about the different partner programs available for ProsperOpps partners and how to get started. Without further ado, I will turn things over to Chris Cochran, our CEO and co-founder.
Hey, thanks, Ross. Appreciate it. And thank you for showing up for the webinar, and to David Tecflair for joining us. ProsperOpps was founded in 2018, largely based on experience that myself and my other two co-founders had while working for Rackspace. Rackspace started working in the AWS ecosystem around 2015, and we were a managed service provider trying to hire, train, and deliver humans with the best tools that we could buy or build to do great things for our customers. And there were a lot of optimization tasks to perform. And in particular, there was a set of tasks largely dealing with cloud financial management that we just never felt we were able to nail. And largely the conclusion was that solving this problem in the optimal way might be a computer science problem, not a humans with reports problem. So we started ProsperOpps to go and bring sort of an AI ops orientation to different parts of the cloud cost optimization problem set. And today, we have over around $700 million of annual AWS compute across our customer base. And as part of this, we work closely with AWS and many of the trade organizations like the FinOps Foundation, as well as IT organizations like Gartner and Forrester, to go and try to bring awareness to how AI ops can deliver optimization results well beyond what humans could on their own. So just to start off with, who is this for? Well, ProsperOpps is a point solution, and we partner with a variety of different types of companies and firms. We'll start off with technology providers as a point solution. We work with a lot of cloud management platforms, people that are in the IT procurement as a service space. And collectively, we have a set of software products that allow us to go and holistically address problems for customers. So if you're a technology provider, ProsperOpps is a great solution to pair with what you're doing. We work with a lot of consultants and managed service providers. On the consulting side, one of the challenges is you're providing these services, you're always looking for budget to go and vie for, and you're looking for that sort of recurring revenue stream. And ProsperOpps is a great tool to add to your toolkit that generates a recurring revenue stream for you, and can really go and add a automated capability that's very easy to scale to your business. And we also work with a lot of AWS distributors and resellers. And in that case, what we see a lot of these resellers working to sort of deliver high value optimization services to their customers. By leveraging ProsperOpps, they're able to go and deliver a gain share model that their customers benefit from, they benefit from as well, using the ProsperOpps optimization service. So a variety of different ways to work together with ProsperOpps, no matter what business you're in the AWS ecosystem. But we can be a great way to add value to your customer base. And we'll talk more about the benefits to your customers as well as the benefits to your business here in a moment.
Thank you, Chris. Let's talk about the cost optimization opportunity for partners. Chris, what are you seeing in our space?
Yeah, well, if you look at sort of the data that's coming out of a variety of different sources, cost along with security continues to be sort of the 1-2 problems that customers are dealing with. And obviously, as you look at the top right of this chart, the manifestations of not optimizing your compute spend show up in a variety of ways beyond just a high cloud bill. It deals with velocity, it deals with the aggressiveness by which you can create new services, et cetera. And this problem just continues, and it's correlated, obviously, the magnitude of the problem is correlated with the increase in cloud growth over time. And so, we see a lot of customers that largely think about optimization, understand that the amount of waste in their bill could be upwards of 30%. And a significant number of people who are using the cloud today feel that. And so, we want to attack optimization just like you do as a provider holistically. And when we think about how that operates, we might go to the next slide. We think about it, optimization in two sort of large zip codes. And really, if you're going to fully optimize your environment, nailing both of these areas are important. We find most providers in the space tend to focus on the left side of this page, engineering optimization. It's critical, really making sure that you are providing as a provider the best architectural solution to get the most out of the AWS cloud. We focus on the right-hand side of this page around sort of the financial optimization problem set, and that's using discount instruments to go and generate the lowest possible price you pay. And a big part of our service and why we work so closely with many of our providers is that if you're able to prosecute both of these optimization activities concurrently, that's where you really get the biggest bang for your buck. And historically, at least what we saw in a prior life, was that a lot of people tend to think about these two types of optimization sequentially, where let me first work on architecturally getting my cloud environment perfect. And once that's done, I can then go about optimizing the price. And a large part of our strategy is that you don't actually have to think about these sequentially. You should be able to go and run them concurrently. And that's why there's just a great partnership opportunity we have with different providers that are doing great work on the left side of this page. One of the things that's interesting, especially in a world where you have savings plans as a price optimization tool, is this idea that, hey, financial optimization is sort of a solved problem. There's not a lot of juice left to squeeze. And what we see in the data suggests that is not the case, and that financial optimization has tremendous amounts of value yet to be delivered. And you can see this here on this chart where we look at prospects from all sizes and levels of sophistication, and we benchmark them relative to what levels of ROI they're generating on their use of discount instruments in the pursuit of financial optimization. Our core KPI is called the effective savings rate. And the way to think about the effective savings rate is that through your use of RIs and savings plans, what aggregate discount are you able to achieve off the on-demand rate across your global compute estate? And it's a combination of many things that come up to that ROI metric, the effective savings rate. The three primary drivers are the coverage of discount instruments relative to your overall usage, the utilization of those instruments such that they're matching resources you're running and generating a discount, and the overall discount rate that Amazon is giving you for the commitment you make and the resource you're covering. And when we look at the data, what we find is that because the discount instruments off the shelf are so rigid and long-term in most cases, they have quite a bit of risk, and people understand that. And because of that, they tend to go and hedge their use of these instruments. And what we find actually is that the vast majority of organizations that are using these instruments only achieve effective savings rates up to or less than 20%. So think about this as the best that most organizations are getting is about a 20% discount off the on-demand rate before they apply an EDP or private pricing agreement. ProsperOpps, on the other hand, and part of our methodology is turning these rigid and full-term instruments into something that's much more elastic. And because of that, And because we're manifesting all of this with automation and technology, we're able to achieve much higher levels of coverage, utilization, and ultimately bring people to the highest level of discount that Amazon offers. And we can take customers who potentially were achieving less than a 20% effective savings rate and drive them into the 40% or greater range. And doing so places them in the 98th percentile of all AWS optimization teams, which is tremendous. And when you start thinking about the improvement from 20 or less than 20% up to 40 on large bases of compute spend, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a month, the numbers get quite impactful with regards to the financial benefits a customer can see when they fully optimized their environment from a pricing perspective. And keep in mind, this can happen concurrently with engineering optimization work that one of our partners is doing for that customer in the same time frame that they're seeing this improvement in their rate optimization.
Thank you for walking us through the opportunity, Chris. Stephen, what challenges exist for service providers and consultancies trying to provide cloud financial management services at scale?
Yeah, thanks, Ross. So look at this slide here. So the cloud, it's constantly evolving. We all know that. So maintaining a solid discount strategy in parallel with all the other services that you're doing, such as migrating new workloads, managing existing cloud workloads for your customers, all of that is extremely complex when you're doing it in parallel, especially if you're seeking best-in-class savings results. So most consulting partners that we speak with can only make savings recommendations monthly or even quarterly at best. So continuous management is arguably impossible for any consulting partner who is not using automation today. AWS also only offers up 1 and 3-year rigid commitments, making it very challenging to determine how much you should safely recommend to your customers. And this is especially true because of unpredictable cloud environments over those same commitment periods. Even with reporting tools that you're using today, maybe even light forecasting modeling that you're doing, you're always at risk giving a wrong recommendation. And this is why we see most partners offer up conservative recommendations out of fear of overcommitment. As a result, partners are also leaving savings on the table. And lastly, I'd argue that hiring and retaining optimization specialists and keeping them trained is a very, very difficult thing to do in this economy. But also because FinOps specialization is still a very new area of interest for a lot of new hires. Even if hiring is not a challenge, I would say that ensuring that they follow up and hold customers accountable for taking the actions that you actually recommend are a huge struggle for most organizations we talk to prior to utilizing ProsperOpss.
Appreciate you sharing some context there around those common challenges, Stephen. How does ProsperOpss support AWS service providers?
Yep, good question. So our hands-free platform provides ongoing savings visibility, configurable controls pre and post onboarding, and continuous automated optimization. So this is just a snapshot of what our console looks like. And I'll highlight a few things here. So on the top left here, you're going to see our commitments. So you're easily going to visualize, the commitments in our platform, what we're actually doing, how we're structuring, what our method looks like. We're also have a new product called Intelligent Showback that we released over the past year. And Intelligent Showback is going to properly allocate cost and savings in a intelligent way that you would not see in your native AWS tooling. We also showcase the activity both from the customer side, how many instant changes are actually occurring on your side from an engineering perspective, and how many actions ProsperOpss is actually taking place on our side. And so as you can see in this particular screenshot, we've taken well over 1,000 actions in a single month, something that you cannot do at a human level. On the top right, you're going to see an audit. And basically what this is we deep link back into AWS. AWS is a source of record for all of our data. And so we are very transparent with where our data is coming from, but we also want to be one-for-one from a savings perspective. So you can always ensure that you're auditing the data that we're actually providing you. We're always going to showcase savings in various degrees across the platform, both as a lifetime level, a monthly level, and we're also going to showcase incremental, as well as any sort of savings that are coming between RIs and savings plans and what the split and the difference looks like there. And then lastly, if we are maintaining a very sound strategy and performing well, you're going to continue to see very high levels of utilization in our platform, as you see across all of our customer base. And so high levels of utilization for RIs, high levels of utilization from savings plans, and we're always front and center with actually showcasing that in our platform. So we talk about the value proposition for everybody on this call. So if you're an AWS provider today, why would you use ProsperOpps, and what would you gain from using a platform and partnering with a software like ours? Well, first and foremost, you're going to increase your recurring revenue. We are our pricing is based off of a savings share that we take a portion of the savings that we're able to generate on behalf of the instrumentation and the methodology that we're able to receive. On the back end, we actually pay our partners a part of that savings share that we receive on a monthly and quarterly basis. This also allows you to retain your customers long term because they're getting the best in class savings optimization savings result from a platform like us. They're likely to maintain and stay with you for a really long time because of your recommendation. This also, because we're saving customers money on off their AWS bill, allows you to repurpose those savings into new projects, whether that is migrating new workloads or any other optimization efforts or service efforts that you actually have on your side. This is a differentiation for you as well. When you think about the traditional software market out there, cost optimization market out there, the tooling that you're used to is evolving more to an automated state where you see a ProsperOpps today. So it allows you to differentiate in this particular space around cost optimization. We also have AWS sales alignments. When you think about MAP, so any sort of migration of workloads that you're actually doing in tandem with AWS, aligning to them. You have OLAs with anything around Microsoft workloads because we don't discriminate on workloads in how we work with organizations. They could use any OS in our platform. That is a huge alignment with AWS and what their efforts are. And lastly, I'd say no friction to implement, operate, or scale. And if you look on the right-hand side, we have a very, very easy process for customers to start with us. So aside from any sort of introductory call where we have a lot of Q&A, we always go through a free savings analysis that is able to quantify the savings that we're able to generate on behalf of our platform, what we can actually perform. Every customer is bespoke, and every customer is very unique. And we deliver a very deep dive and in-depth review that I would say is a differentiator in how we actually go to market and the information we're able to provide, and they can actually take home as a result of that conversation we have. Outside of that review, assuming they want to move forward, there's a permission rollout, which effectively upgrades our permissions to allow us to take action on their behalf. And then we just go through from an onboarding perspective. So once they subscribe on our platform, it's a 30 to 45-minute call at best. It could be an hour long if they have a lot of questions. But overall, we're reviewing settings, real-time telemetry, and getting them started. After that, it's off to the races, and savings is automated, hands-free from any sort of actions that need to take place after they subscribe. So when you think about outcomes from a customer perspective, we're always going to maximize their cloud savings net of our charge. So pretty much a guarantee that using our platform is always going to yield a higher savings return net of our charge above and beyond what they're actually doing on their own. We're also going to minimize commitment risk. And for most customers who are struggling, and partners in that matter, we're struggling with applying 1- and 3-year discount instruments out of fear of any sort of overcommitment and really that long-term aspect of things. We're creating these flexible short-term commitments and by way of our platform and our methodology. Like I said before, we're a fully autonomous platform. So hands-free of you as a partner to manage this, but also for your customer. They're not having to do anything after they subscribe. The longer your customers are in our model, the more we end up saving. A lot of that has to do with the elasticity that we're building up over time, but the discount unlocking that we're building up over the course of time, the longer customers are in our environment. If we do all those things, obviously we're maximizing their effective savings rate, as Chris had mentioned before.
Thank you, Stephen. Now let's hear from our partner, David Phillips at Tecflair, about his experience partnering with ProsperOpps and our joint success.
Dave, welcome to the call. Thanks for joining us. Dave, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks, Stephen. Good to be here.
Yeah, so for the audience, maybe tell us a little bit about your background before we get started.
Yeah, sure. I've been involved in cloud and infrastructure projects for, well, a couple of decades, really. And having been in CTO, CIO roles in a number of enterprise clients and organizations. So I've kind of followed the whole hosting and cloud story right from the days when it was normal just to use on-prem colo workloads all the way through to really focusing now on primarily AWS in the cloud environment and some Azure. So as a as a CIO, CTO, I had all of these kind of problems that we typically run into nowadays. So, so that's me.
So Dave, just thinking about, you've been with us for a while, much more, or at least much longer than at least before my time. So maybe a question for you is, how did you originally hear about ProsperOpps when we were, I would assumingly, very new to the scene? And what was the problem you were attempting to solve with our product on behalf of your clients?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I came across ProsperOpps about 4 years ago now, and I was in a CIO role for a large SaaS business. We had a huge AWS environment, and it was one where we needed to cost optimize as quickly as possible for various reasons. And a lot of the AWS discount tracking and so forth were fairly new to us at that point. Now, I was looking for something to automate a good discount strategy. Okay, I understood the discount strategies, and I've done various things around that, but it was a real problem for us because as a team, we were spending a lot of time changing reserved instances, trying to work with the engineering team to make sure that they weren't conflicting with the discounts we were putting in place. And it was really a big issue for us. And so I came across ProsperOpps and spoke with Chris at length, and decided that ProsperOpps was the way to go, primarily because the strategy that we could implement through ProsperOpps for discounts was world beating. And secondly, it was fully automated. And so that was a huge thing. And yeah, so that's how I kind of first came across you guys.
Yeah, very cool, Dave. And I think interesting to point out, all the customers you brought over to ProsperOpps are still with us today. And so we're serving your customers still to this day, and still giving them great results on an ongoing basis, again, with no intervention from your side or even from their side to actually manage this product. So maybe speak to that a little bit about what can you tell what can you tell the audience here about working with ProsperOpps just in general?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just that ProsperOpps is just a great product. It just works. Everyone I speak to that we work with and introduce ProsperOpps to just love the fact that it's totally hands off. With the exception every now and again of being contacted by ProsperOpps to ask if we want to tweak a setting here or make another optimization there. It's just literally set and forget, and that's very rare in reality. And it's unique. I don't know of anything else that's like ProsperOpps out there. And so from a product perspective, it's second to none. But also the team, is really approachable and supportive. And from a reseller point of view, a partner perspective, they're got a very high degree of trustworthiness from my perspective. And so I don't ever have to worry about introducing deals to them or anything like that. So it just works great. We've never had a hiccup of any sort.
That's great. That's good to hear. And so when you think about what Chris was talking about earlier, he was talking around engineering optimization versus financial optimization. And every consulting partner we speak with today, whether you're a reseller, consulting partner, anything you're doing around AWS, there's a full gamut of what you're doing. When you think about well-architected reviews, which a lot of our consulting partners are doing, there's a ton of stuff going on. Specifically for you, when you think about just the cost optimization arena and all the different things that you can provide your organizations, how are you going to market, and how are you packaging and selling your solutions today, even in parallel with ProsperOpps?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because we're not necessarily a typical AWS partner from the perspective of leading with well-architected reviews and that kind of thing, because we really focus on the cost optimization aspect of it. We do some other optimization stuff as well, but we don't lead with things like well-architected reviews. What we actually do is we've created consultancy products specifically around this CCO aspect, and they act as vehicles for us to get engagements, which then allow us to introduce them to ProsperOpps. But primarily, these are things like FinOps health checks or FinOps maturity assessments, for example. reviews of their discount strategy, that kind of thing. And that allows us, just as Chris spoke about earlier on, it allows us to focus on the financial optimization first versus the engineering optimization. I mean, Chris went into this at length, but I'm just going to reiterate it because it really is important. A lot of the time when we go into a prospect, they say, come back in a year's time when we've finished this particular project, because we're right sizing, the system could be 20% slimmer by the time we get around to this. And my response is always to explain that if you can really cost optimize, financially optimize with confidence that you're not going to be taking risk in the commitments that you're making, then you can carry on with the engineering optimization in the background with no conflicts. You don't have to worry about the engineers changing things and the discounts being out of sync with them, because ProsperOpps monitors it every hour of every day and makes sure that it all stays in sync. So it means that they can take the two approaches in parallel instead of in serial, and that can save them a huge amount of money. So that's the way we approach it, and that is pretty unique. Other people don't tell that same story.
I think too, just to add on top of that, I think that's why most partners, whenever they're giving up recommendations, they're very conservative by design. They don't want to overcommit out of fear of any sort of the engineering optimization or any of the other things that they're doing with those customers, the services they're providing for their customers, out of fear that there's going to be sort of overcommitment. And so having a platform like us that is managing this continuously, it's reactive and adaptive to what is going on in the engineering environment, allows them to do their best work while the financial side is taken care of on a continuous basis. That brings me kind of my next question, Dave. When you think about the landscape in general, there's so many different cloud management platforms out there. If you Google the word cloud and a SaaS platform, there's probably hundreds of platforms that start with the word cloud. And so it's really hard to decide what to choose, how you could go to market, how you're partnering with particular organizations and software platforms. But how did you choose ProsperOpps over the other ones that are out there? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but maybe do a deeper dive into what set us apart and why are you using us versus any other platforms that you see out there that traditionally are being used by the partner community?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's a really easy one for me to answer because, I did a lot of research into it and I just didn't find anything else that did what ProsperOpps does for discount management. It really is unique as far as I know. I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing else out there, but I really don't know of anything. And it's my job to know about that stuff. We use other tools. And one of the things about our approach is that we don't want to be a product company of our own. We don't want to develop things. We don't want that kind of level of support and maintenance that we need to put in place. So our strategy is to find the best tools in each area and to recommend and then support those with consultancy and with our clients. With ProsperOpps, there are tools that people think are similar, but they're really not. And there's things around discounts which can be risky and which some companies adopt, methods which I think are really risky. ProsperOpps does none of that. It just works within the standard AWS frameworks. It automates some brilliant strategies and uses methods which are not commonly known to make sure that the discounts are just managed effectively. And so for me, that's just a game changer. And it means that I just don't have to worry about anything coming back on us. I can sleep at night. And so that really is unique from my perspective. Another thing is that for me, as a partner, ProsperOpps is just zero risk because it's got an instant ROI for clients. Whenever I recommend it, I don't have to worry about clients having to go and get budget for it. It pays for itself out of the incremental savings that are made on their AWS bill. And so there's never been a situation where I've needed to worry or be embarrassed or anything like that, because it's just a natural thing for people to take on once they get a savings analysis and understand what it's about. The fact that we don't rely on things like RI brokerage, moving discounts like RIs from one customer to the next means there's no risk from that perspective either. And so it just makes life easier for me as a partner, because I just don't have to worry about risk and not delivering a great service to the client at all.
So Dave, you had mentioned the word unique several times, and I just want to call out a few things. For one, for the audience out there, by design, we didn't put a whole lot about our methodology and how we're actually doing discount instrumentation and what our strategy is. If you want to learn more, hit us up after this call, reach out to the alias that you'll see at the end of this, or hit up our website and request a demo. We certainly encourage it. We'll do a deeper dive for those out there. But I just want to talk about just a little bit around, we do have an opinionated strategy of how we go to market. We have an opinionated strategy of what discount instrumentation should be used to have more of a holistic approach, holistic offering, and a model of control to deliver best savings outcomes, not only for the short term, but also for the long term. And so I think you need to have that as a part of what we're doing. But secondly, you need to be able to execute at an automated level versus having a bunch of humans trying to tweak things, creating this, what we would call a fake automated experience. And so what you get from a ProsperOpps is best of both worlds: a great strategy, a great opinionated method of what we should be doing. And then two, the execution engine behind that drives the results that you actually see for all of our customers and for your customers, Dave, as well. So a couple things. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. You want to add?
No, one thing I'd like to just mention is that my experience with prospects is that they rarely believe that it'll do what it says it'll do, or at least they don't understand. They often think that it's like everything else that's out there, and they think that they have got a strategy and that there's not a need for this. But the key thing is that once you get them to take a savings analysis, that's the point at which it starts to click and they start to understand that this is different. Okay, and so there is a bit of a wall to climb over just to get them to that point sometimes, because they think it's they understand what it's about, but almost invariably they just don't. And so you've got to get them over that wall, and then it really just sells itself from that point.
Yeah, so question around just longevity. You've been here for a long time. You've been working with us at least for a long time. So your customers have been with us for a long time. What's the feedback that you receive? Because clearly you're still working with these organizations. What's the feedback you receive in regard to what we're able to do, the savings results that we're able to achieve, and obviously the hands-free optimization that we're doing? What's the feedback you are getting from your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I do reviews with clients on a regular basis because it's important to maintain the relationship. There's a danger that because it just works, you could just leave them for years without getting in touch, right? And it'll still carry on. But when I review and I ask them what they think about it, the most common comment is it just works. Okay, they always love it. And I've got clients running for 3 years plus with no churn. I've never had a client turn ProsperOpps off or want to turn ProsperOpps off. And so that's a great recommendation. And they love the fact that it's just self-funding. And so they'll always kind of keep it going in the long term, because their only alternative is to do it manually, because none of these other products will do the same thing that ProsperOpps will do. So yeah, they absolutely love it.
That's great to hear. So obviously, if you have customers that have been with you for a really long time, you see here on the slide deck, intentionally, we don't want to put real numbers up here for your business, respectfully. But we also want to understand too, just from your perspective, what can you tell us about your business growth of using ProsperOpps just over the course of time? And obviously, as you add more customers, you see us able to generate more savings. The more savings you're able to generate, the more we can actually benefit you on giving you a portion of that savings share. But can you tell us a little bit about working with us over time, but what that's done to you from a revenue stream?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one nice thing about ProsperOpps is that it increases the savings over time. The strategy is designed to reduce risk when people are making long-term commitments. Okay, so you get to the point where where the whole platform is running on 3-year discount levels without them having long-term commits that they're worried about from a risk perspective. And so that means that over time, it increases the amount of discount and therefore the amount of savings that clients are receiving, which, because the revenue comes from a share of those savings, means that just naturally over time, I as a partner am getting a larger dollar amount because the value just keeps going up and up from a product perspective, which is great for me. It not only is it a recurring revenue stream, it's a growing recurring revenue stream without any really significant work from my point of view after those introductions. And so,
That's great to hear. And Dave, I just want to reiterate to the audience out here is that we love our partners. Our partners are huge for our business, but they also add a ton of credibility in the prospect and customer relationship or the journey of starting out with ProsperOpps. And so having a solid partnership, somebody with their own opinion to back us up once you learn more about our product is huge for us. And so we want to encourage obviously more growth with partnerships across the world for all the people that are actually listening to us today. So maybe just to wrap up, Dave, what's next for Tecflair? When you think about your journey using tools like us, what we've been able to create for you from a revenue stream perspective, what's next for Tecflair and for your cost optimization journey with your clients?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing this has enabled us to do is to branch out a little bit. We're now more involved in security because that is a big area. And so when we talk about cloud optimization, it's not just it's cost optimization, but it's also security optimization. So we help clients make sure that their environments are safe and the perimeters are secure, and we have some great products and expertise around that. But one of the reasons we actually started branching out, going into other areas, is because you need more than just a cost optimization story to tell. It's actually, what I've found is it's quite difficult just going in trying to beat the cost optimization drum, because it often isn't at the top of the list, ironically. And so you need to get in there and get the confidence of the client, and then you can introduce the cost optimization, i.e. ProsperOpps, as another plank really to your story. And that's something which is, I think, very important for any partner, not just to go and beat one drum, because it means that you can get other opportunities as we go along there. So we also do a lot of work around analytics, FinOps maturity, that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, this won't be the same for all partners, but for us, ProsperOpps is a real bedrock because of that recurring revenue model and the fact that that goes up. It's really advantageous for me to build a base of ProsperOpps deals, because then it gives me opportunities to move into other areas and so on. So I love it from that perspective.
I love that you said that too, because I even think, Dave, what if you didn't have a ProsperOpps for the past few years? What if you had to do optimization in a legacy mindset where you're having to provide recommendations and do as much optimization as you can as far as trying to set up meetings, enforcing your recommendations are actually taking place, and doing all those things by looking at reporting and modeling, and then doing it conservatively versus seeing the outcomes. I wonder if even today you'd be even enabled to be able to branch out into other services they're able to provide. So I feel like a little bit that the automation that we're able to provide, the outcomes, the customer experience you're able to deliver, is allowing you to do other things to expand your business. Would you agree or disagree?
Absolutely. That recurring revenue foundation is absolutely crucial for a business like this. I mean, some partners will just exist on services, and that's their main focus. And that works well in certain environments. That's not the way I like to work, because I like to earn money while I sleep, basically, which is what this is about. So
that's great. Well, Dave, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for answering all the questions that we had. Hope everybody out there enjoyed the conversation and got some really good perspective outside of ProsperOpps. Chris, I don't know if you're going to say anything. I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, Dave's awesome. Please check out Tecflair, and thanks for your partnership, Dave.
Thank you, Chris.
Great. Thank you for your partnership, Dave. Ross, I don't know if we have any questions from anybody. This would be a good time to see if anybody has any questions out there to ask away.
Yeah. At this time, we'd like to open the floor and invite any of our guests to just chat in questions. Feel free to submit those through the chat feature in Zoom. Looks like our first one has already come in. What if our customers have existing reservations, commitments, or savings plans? How does that work, Stephen?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we get this, I would say, every single week. We are a holistic platform. So when you think about true automation, what we're able to provide our customer base, it isn't just about additional savings on top of what you're getting today. That's a big part of it. It's about holistically managing your entire environment, ensuring you are receiving the best optimization on current discount instrumentation that you're using, and then implementing newer advanced strategies through ProsperOpps. And so it's a long way to say we manage all discount instruments, even organizations that are coming with us where they already have a subset of RIs or savings plans. We inherit that into our platform, and then we continually optimize moving forward, both with our new strategy, but also optimizing their existing assets today.
Thank you, Stephen. Another question about the savings analysis. Curious if you can tell me more about that process.
Yeah. So just it's super easy, and by design, Chris and the team created the savings analysis to allow us to quantify the savings ahead of any organization moving forward. Because most organizations are skeptical, they want to see what the opportunity is to save, via our platforms, via our algorithms. So we go through a super lightweight IA information by design. So for any sort of InfoSec conscious organizations that the audience is working with today, you will find that our ease of use in our savings analysis is super easy to set up, but effectively it's a super lightweight AI information. We have it publicly on our website in our FAQ section. They sign up via our console, apply the AI information, allows us to ingest data from Cost Explorer and from a curve file. We're able to get super granular in our results. And I would argue that that is a differentiator in what we're able to do pre-sales in tandem with our partners to be able to deliver great, really just data, graphs, representation, and really just savings results. This also serves as our both our analysis as well as our quote as well. So they'll be able to see what our savings share is, the savings outcomes, and really just historically what they've been doing, and in the future state what ProsperOpps is doing. So super lightweight. It should take you or a customer less than 10 minutes to set up. And for us, we generally will spend about 30 minutes to an hour to review, both with you and the client on the call.
Awesome, thank you. I think this one comes up quite a bit too. Someone here chatted, we use Cloud Health today. Would ProsperOpps replace that?
Chris, you want to take that one?
Sure. No, actually, a lot of our customers will use one of the legacy cloud management platforms, whether it's Cloud Health or a Cloudability, a Cloud Checker. And those tools are sort of Swiss Army knife report and recommendation tools, and they'll cover a lot of ground. And so, in many cases, we run next to those. We are a complement, not a substitute. And for the customers that we have that run those tools, they'll use them for a variety of other things. But what they won't do is they won't use those tools to help them execute their discount management strategy. They let ProsperOpps do that. And so they sort of get the best of both worlds. We're automating and executing on their behalf all of the discount management work. They're able to use those tools in other ways to go and look at other cost elements of their environment and make decisions where we're largely their insights as a consultant or an engineer and getting that data really matter. And so those tools are great for those types of challenges. But ProsperOpps is obviously working autonomously in the FinOps zone, and they don't have to worry about that particular item anymore.
Great, thank you. Another question that just got chatted in. Do you use the AWS marketplace to buy and sell reservations? Stephen, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can take that. We do not use the RI marketplace today. And maybe Chris could even chime in as well, just with their opinionated strategy in regard to when they founded ProsperOpps, they had to make a decision. Did they want to be an RI broker or did they want to use the exchange via AWS to be more real-time to deliver better results than what you're actually seeing for these RI brokers? But Chris, I don't know if you want to add maybe into the history of that, and I can maybe add on top of that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first of all, we're not ideologues about approach. Our core metric is the effective savings rate, which is what generates the highest ROI in the environment. And brokering across the standard RI marketplace is a legitimate strategy. I mean, there's obviously counterparty risk. Amazon enforces hold times. There are things that reduce some level of your flexibility and or increase your risk. And we gravitated very early on to the use of convertible RIs and then ultimately convertible RIs plus compute savings plans, because those tended to be very flexible instruments that you could adapt quickly and you could control via the API. And so you didn't have to worry about the counterparty risk you might see on something like the standard RI marketplace. Now, that being said, effective savings rate is really what matters. And so ultimately, any approach that maximizes the effective savings rate is the right approach. And we found that the flexibility offered by our approach absolutely does that. And it also creates the most adaptable and environment that manages risk that is otherwise inherent when you're using these types of instruments.
Chris,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'll add on
Steve.
top of that, because I think it's important to distinguish a few key things as you're seeking, between an RI broker or between a platform that's fully automated, such as ours. I think when you find, and Chris hits on this effective savings rate, I think what's really important to conceptualize and really understand. Let's assume you can get a 50% discount. Let's just say 50% discount. That's what you can receive. If you can only cover 50% of your environment, then you're effectively only going to get a 25% effective savings rate. That's going to be your outcome, because the other 50% is uncovered. It's receiving list price, so no discount. It's diluting that 50% that you're actually covering. And typically what we see from any sort of RI brokerage, because you can't react in real time, because you have to worry about or at mercy of just these third party and moving between customer to customer, the reaction time is delayed. And if you have any sort of reaction time delayed, most of those providers need to hedge, and they don't generally cover 100% or maximize your coverage. And so your savings that you think you're getting are diluted by the remaining on-demand list price. And then the second thing I would say is most RI brokerage, the liquidity of Linux is significantly higher than what you see that of Windows. And I would argue that every single partner that we work with today, whether you're resell or just serving your customers, there is a mix between Linux workloads, Windows workloads, Rail workloads, et cetera. And so when you're using an RI broker or utilizing the RI marketplace, you'll see a much more higher propensity to find Linux workloads or Linux RIs in the marketplace, but anything non-Linux is very, very hard to find. So it's very risky. So traditionally, what we find is you generally don't see those covered at all or be able to support those. In our model, we don't discriminate and we cover all types of instances. And so I think it creates a much more superior offering of having a better model of control while being non-discriminatory on what we're able to cover by increasing that overall effective savings rate across all of our customers.
Thank you both. That was a very comprehensive answer. Got a question here. What am I responsible for when supporting ProsperOpps within my customer environments? Chris, would you like to address that?
Yeah, sure. I'll do that one. So look, I think Dave said this very well. We want our partners, in many cases, our partners are sort of the strategic touch point with the end customer, and they always maintain that role in the discussion. Partners like Dave will be in any customer conversation we have, largely leading that conversation. And we're there obviously in a supportive role, specifically with regards to discount management. But one of the great things that we think is inherent to our partnering model is that we put very little onus of responsibility onto the partner. We will, and team members will handle the solutioning expertise, or the solutioning activity where we can show expertise and pattern recognition. We'll handle onboarding, and then to the extent there's any sort of ongoing, account management support related needs, we'll handle that on behalf of our partners. So our goal is to make partners and allow them to operate in a strategic capacity, and we will handle everything sort of tooth to tail with regards to the execution of discount management. So that's not effort that goes in their court, nor is it a whole set of incremental expertise that they have to go and master. With the exception, I'll say, Dave has sort of mastered that well before we started working with them. He's unique in that way. But that's our goal, is to make it where partners can focus on their particular expertise, and we will bring all things to bear with regards to discount management.
Great, thank you. Looks like one more question came in. There's a billing question. What is the cost for ProsperOpps? Stephen?
Yeah, so at the highest level, I just really want to kind of pick on the word cost. it doesn't really cost anything when we're generating savings. I mean, effectively, ProsperOpps is generating our bill via the savings that we're able to generate on behalf of the customer. And so we get paid from a portion of the savings generated by our platform. So I just want everybody to understand how our model works. And by design, we take a small percentage of savings while giving a majority of the savings back to the customer. And so we work in a savings share model, and that's how we price out for our customers.
Thank you, Stephen. Looks like that is all of the questions for now, but if anyone watching or attending has questions, please feel free to reach out to us. As Stephen mentioned, you can email the alias sales@prosperops.com, or you can learn more about our partner programs and request a demo at prosperops.com/partners. With all that said, thank you so much for joining us. Dave, again, appreciate your time. Stephen, Chris, thank you for joining us, and all of our attendees. Have a wonderful week.